Welcome to NEWSMAKER. I'm your host, Dawn Jones. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today's show is all about moving past traumas to live your best life in a good mental space. Our first guest is Alexis Neal. She's a Flint native and the author of this journal here, Vibing Through My Trauma. It's a journal that offers a safe space for women to work through their traumas through journaling and writing and mindfulness. And thank you, Alexis, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Alexis, you are a Flint native, a graduate of Flint Northern High School,
Yes,
is that correct? And right now you are pursuing a degree in social work.
Yes.
Why social work?
So I chose social work because I have a heart of helping people. I've been through a lot as a child and even as an adult, and so me giving back to my community and to pour out to them what I was poured into will be able to help them and to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and so you authored, this is the first book you've authored or journal that you've authored?
Yes.
And it's called Vibing Through My Trauma. So give us a little backstory. Tell us about your story of trauma.
Okay, growing up, I didn't have parents. I was raised by my grandparents. So at an early age, I had abandonment issues. I used to run from my problems. I felt like I wasn't able to speak out about my issues or problems. So I'll just write my problems down because the only person I felt like I had was myself. I did have other adults try to come in and help, which I would give them all of the love and the thank you. But just growing up and not realizing that I needed a foundation that I really had. I had my grandmother, but again, she had her own children to raise. So it was just me trying to find myself. And as growing, I was just teaching and learning. The biggest thing for me was to see people who I did not want to be like, and that encouraged me to go. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. So I chose different.
Yeah, so you decided you didn't want to become a product, I guess, of your circumstance.
Yes.
And what was the most difficult part of that journey? I know you said you had abandonment issues because you have parents, but they just weren't in your life.
Correct.
Is that
so it was biggest not having a mother. And to this day, I finally realized that that is the biggest thing that I was missing in my life. But with me actually having a daughter now, I can give her what I didn't have.
Yeah, you have 4 children, right?
So yes, I have 3 boys and a girl.
Mm-hmm. And so what is it that you were missing by not having a mother that you think you're giving to your children now?
So basically the love, the affirmations, a role model of a mother. So basically with me growing, I'm learning myself and teaching myself. So again, it goes back to that's not what I want to be. So I'm giving my children what I didn't have, and I'm still learning. Every day may not be perfect. Oh yeah. But I'm giving them something completely different than what I had.
Yeah, and journaling helped you through those traumas.
Yes, it does.
And so you say you began writing. You would write your problems down. You know, back in the day, we used to call it a diary. So was it like a diary, or would you just write them on random pieces of paper or whatever you could find?
Yes, and I would write it down because I'm like, okay, y'all not listening to me. Instead of me trying to find attention or for you to feel sorry for me, let me just write it down, and you will actually see it. And I don't have to explain to you how I'm feeling. You can just read it and then you process it yourself. But oftentimes, I said that got me through a lot because I didn't want to speak about it, and I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I could say.
Yeah, so now you've authored this journal, Vibing Through My Trauma. Tell me about the journal. There are prompts in here. One, I noticed, what am I grateful for?
Yes.
So just tell me about the journal and the prompts that you have in here, and why gratefulness is so important. It seems to be a theme throughout this journal.
Because some days we have our days and we feel like the world is just on us or against us. But we have one thing that we're grateful for. It can just be opening our eyes, being able to speak and say, thank you, Lord, for another day. Every day we're grateful. Food on the table, we're waking up to lights and running water, a vehicle. Even if we don't have a vehicle, we have money to get on the MTA bus. Just being grateful for what we do have.
Yeah, and not focusing on what you don't have.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so where can people find your journal?
So people will find my journal. It's on Amazon. I also have it. I have a lot on hand. So it would be best for you to get it from me.
Okay, and it's and you have Vibing Through My Trauma on Facebook, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And people can find
it
it's,
there.
it's
Yes,
Vibing Through My Trauma.
Vibing Through My Trauma.
On Facebook. Now, there's a quote that is attributed to you, and the quote, it says, "Keep going, even when it feels like the odds are against you. Remember that every step forward is a victory. Don't give up, because just around the corner could be the breakthrough that you've been waiting for." What does that mean to you?
That means to me that even though everyone may not agree to what you're doing, everyone might not agree with you, or everyone might not even praise you, just know that you are doing the best that you can, and then keep going, because you're making someone else happy. You're making yourself happy. You could put in an obstacle, a goal. Like with me, I'm the first graduate of my family, so I broke a generational curse. And I'm just going to keep on breaking curses and as I go.
Yeah, and so what would you tell? There are lots of people living in all kinds of situations, young people. I'm thinking, you know, your younger self. What would you tell your younger self that would also be applicable today for another person who may be living through some of the traumas that you lived through?
Don't let your problems define you. You're more than your problems. You may dwell in it for a minute, but get up and keep going, because, again, you may be motivating the next person next to you.
Yeah. Well, Alexis, we are wishing you the absolute best in all of your endeavors, and you know, your college career, going on to be a social worker. We're wishing you the best in that, and your journal, Vibing Through My Trauma. And thank you for being our guest here today. And you can pick up this journal, as she said, on Amazon, but you can also get it through her Facebook page, which is Vibing Through My Trauma. Coming up next here on NEWSMAKER, we're going to be joined by Taylor Kalinsky. She's a 2024 University of Michigan Flint graduate. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NEWSMAKER. Tough, tested, and resilient is how you can describe the 2024 college graduating class. They entered their college careers during the height of the pandemic. Many of their high school graduations were upended and nothing was normal. We are joined in this segment by Taylor Kalinsky. She's a 2024 graduate of the University of Michigan Flint. She's here to discuss her college experience during and post-pandemic and what she learned from that whole experience. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Now, you are a 2020 graduate of Swartz Creek High School.
Yes.
So let's go back and talk about 2019 when you entered your senior year. Everything was great then, right?
Yeah, that was my senior year of high school was probably my favorite year. There was just so many amazing things that were happening, so many cool experiences, and so many things to look forward to at that point.
And what happened in March of 2020?
Of course, that's when the pandemic started, and so many of the things that I had hoped for and looked forward to doing to wrap up my senior year of high school, suddenly I couldn't do those things anymore. And that was definitely a shock and really challenging, having to navigate uncharted waters, really.
Yeah, and so tell us about graduations. Usually take place in high school graduations in first week or so of June, last week of May. Were you one of the fortunate ones who still had a graduation, or was there no graduation for Swartz Creek that year?
We actually were able to have a small graduation ceremony. We were able to go in, walk across our Performing Arts Center stage with just our immediate family there to watch us, and then we, as a slightly larger group, did a turning of the tassel outside.
Yeah, but it was something that it's not how you had dreamed of that day, correct?
Nope.
And so it was then, from there, it was on to college, and you chose to go to the University of Michigan Flint. Your freshman year, did you start in person or online? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my freshman year was primarily online, but I've always been involved in choir ever since middle school, and so choir actually was one of the only in-person classes that I ever had in my university experience, one of only a few. So.
Okay, so the entire 4 years, or just that freshman year?
My freshman year, and then moving forward, I only had probably 3 or 4 in-person classes.
So was that by choice? Did you choose not to go back in person once the world kind of opened up, or did the classes you need just were not offered in person?
Most of the classes that I needed were online, and I learned throughout starting my freshman year really how to manage my time and what I needed to do to succeed in online classes, and I found that I actually really enjoyed them.
Oh, so you were one of the ones who dug right in and
Yes.
enjoyed online.
Yes, I really did miss the in-person interactions, though. That was something that was really a change and really difficult to kind of wrap my mind around sometime, not being able to build the connections that I would have liked to have had with people.
And prior to that, had you ever done any type of commuting classes or online classes or anything like that?
No, it was a completely new experience for me. So having to start not only college, but having to start taking online classes in college was really, really challenging, trying to navigate what that was supposed to look like in contrast with what I had expected a lot of things to look like.
So, you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, as we've been talking. How tough was it navigating during that time when everything was so uncertain and everything that you knew to be how this moment is celebrated, everything that you had known from the past, how others had celebrated this moment and their college experiences was nothing like what you were experiencing. Were there fears, or what? Just how were you dealing with all of that?
I think there were definitely fears, and I think just a lot of the idea of not really knowing what to anticipate or what to look forward to really anymore, I think was challenging and also isolating too, because we're this group of students who not only are we experiencing a lot of the same things, but we were having to experience them all on our own. So we're trying to learn how to relate to other people and their experiences, but we have such a small group sometimes that we feel like we are relating to in our experience of graduating and reaching all these really big milestones.
Yeah, you are honors college psychology major, graduate there at University of Michigan Flint. So you went on to really excel, even in the midst of everything that was going on. And you know, do you feel as resilient as people say this graduating class is? Do you feel all of that?
You know, I don't know. I think the biggest thing is I've learned a lot. So I don't know if that necessarily means that I am resilient. I think there are things that I've done and things that I've experienced that I'm almost grateful for, that the pandemic has allowed me to grow in a lot of the ways that I did. And so I guess in that sense, maybe I am resilient, but I think we all just learned how to keep moving, how to keep going forward. And every person has a different way of approaching that. And yeah, I chose to dig deeper into my studies and learn more about the world around me. And I think that really helped me to see that there was more beyond just the challenges.
What was in front of you, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about what you learned through that, the lessons you learned through that period. You had the great opportunity of speaking at your graduation. You gave a keynote for the 2024 graduating class, the student speaker. Did you talk about the lessons that you all learned, or lessons that you learned during that 4 years, and your own personal growth during that speech? Yeah.
One of the things that I touched on was just the value of relationships. So many of us who are in this pandemic college experience or school experience, creating and forming relationships became a bit of a challenge. You know, we're having to navigate meeting professors online or meeting classmates online when we're used to doing those types of things in person. And I think that was one thing that I really took away from my experience, was how important relationships are, whether they are virtual or in person. The idea that you have to be willing to put yourself out there. I think throughout my college experience, I decided that it was either I stay in my shell and not get involved in things, or I can, even though we're online, I can use this as an opportunity to grow and to learn more about myself and the people around me. And so in my speech, I talked about how everyone is a link in someone else's chain. We all have an impact in somebody else's life. And I think that especially rings true with this group of us who have graduated at this time. You know, we had to learn what it meant to be a link, even if it wasn't maybe a traditional way of interacting with the people around us.
Yeah, would you say that was your biggest lesson from the pandemic as you were learning and navigating and growing through that period? Is that, you know, relationships, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of the relationships that I started to build my freshman year virtually ended up being some of the relationships that have lasted a really long time. And I'm very grateful for those because I think everyone could understand what we were all experiencing. So we all had the opportunity to build into each other and support each other when things were oftentimes very uncertain.
Well, congratulations to you and to the entire 2024 graduating class. And
Thank you.
You're not done. I understand you're going to get a graduate degree
I am,
in
yes.
psychology. So we wish you the absolute best in your career and that you take these lessons with you as you move forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Taylor Kalinsky, and thank you so much for being here with us today. When NEWSMAKER returns, we're going to hear from Dr. Kathy Barton Brown. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NEWSMAKER. We are now joined by psychotherapist Dr. Kathy Barton Brown, and she, of course, is no stranger to NEWSMAKER. She joins us often here. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kathy Barton Brown.
It's so good to be back.
Yes, thank you for coming back. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and people are dealing with so many things. Taylor was just on the show and talking about navigating through that pandemic. We're all on the other side of that experience. We may not have been in college, but we were definitely living and raising families and working. How do we move past some of those traumas and things that we experienced over the past 4 years?
So one of the things that happened during the pandemic was people who were already traumatized were re-traumatized because so many of us stayed busy to avoid dealing with the trauma, and we were forced to sit still, and now we have to deal with those things we've been avoiding. So in that process, we had another layer. So we had the choice of going to get substances or turning to something to help us cope, or taking the mask off and really dealing with the pain.
Yeah. How difficult is it to remove the mask?
It depends on the motivation. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired and dogged by your past, you want to do whatever it takes to change it. And people who have been traumatized, either they repeat the trauma to the next generation or they heal the trauma because they hated the feeling of it. Yeah. So what's the motivation? If I'm just okay with, mediocre, staying the way things have been, then I stay the same. But if I'm sick and want to be healed, then I go about making changes, which often upsets the whole system, because the whole family may be dysfunctional, and you have the courage to change it, so you become the black sheep.
Yeah, yeah. But healing is so important.
Yes.
And what's the first step? Is it recognizing that, when we're talking about moving toward mental well-being, is the first step just understanding that, okay, I may be living a life that's impacted by some past traumas?
I think the first step is knowing that I have pain, but healing hurts. It's like surgery. When you have surgery, it hurts more, but it's so you can be better. So when we first take the mask off, we have to deal with the fear. George Adair says, everything I ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And so if I want to be better, if I want a better life, like your first guest said so eloquently, I want to heal. I want to give my children what I didn't have. So when you take that mask off and say, I have to deal with my own fears, but I want to be better, then that's the first step. Acknowledging it's going to hurt, and I'm afraid, but I want to be better.
And let's talk about the pain now. So once you acknowledge, as we, get to our best mental selves, so once you acknowledge that I have some traumas, I have some hurts, and we understand that healing is even more pain. How do we not give up and continue through that pain of healing to get to the other side?
I think the best way to not give up is to go to your supports. Now, one of the problems with being a survivor of past traumas, it's hard to trust people. So get a professional, because a professional is by law required to be trustworthy. If they violate your trust, you're going to be rich. so get a professional. Join a confidential support group. Talk to, if you're involved in a church, talk to people at church that you trust, because the one thing that trauma does is keep you in prison. And you don't get out of prison until you start talking about the trauma. A lot of times we don't want to talk about it, but our real release and healing is in talking about it.
And don't be afraid of the pain. Do you think some people are afraid of the pain of healing?
How many people do you know hobble around because they don't want knee surgery?
So yes, it's the same with our
mental health.
Yes.
You know, when we talk about it, we get the relief, and it's okay to cry. We have the superwoman syndrome. You know, I'm every woman. It's all in me. Well, sometimes me needs to cry. Sometimes me have to acknowledge that this hurts. You know, it hurts that my grandmother wasn't there. It hurts that my father beat me. Those things hurt. And it's okay to say it hurts, but I'm moving forward. I'm going to keep my car in drive. I'm not going in reverse.
Yeah. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, May, and you know, people who think they may need a little extra help in healing, or if you know someone, how do people reach out for help? Is it just making that first phone call, or when is it beyond self-help and you need professional help?
When it gets to the point that your thoughts are getting dark, don't wait until you bottom out. Get help before you get to the bottom. And I tell people that finding a therapist is like shoe shopping. You know, we will be cute. It hurts to be cute.
It does.
We will be cute for a wedding for 2 or 3 hours, but after those shoes are hurting, so we will take them off.
Yes.
Finding a therapist is the same way. Don't be afraid that if you go to someone and not a good fit, move on.
Yeah.
You're not going to buy shoes that are too big. You're not going to buy shoes that are too tight. If it's not a good fit, you will never share the wounds of the heart. You will never share it.
That's a perfect ending to this segment. Dr. Kathy Barton-Brown, it is always a pleasure, and we want to remind our audience that the national suicide hotline number is 988. That's 988. So if you need help or know someone else who does, it's 988. Thank you so much for watching today. That's going to do it for our program.
Shop